There are two things that dance could never be again: beautiful and cheerful. Today, we need to break the nose of every beautiful thing. This is Rebooty and the Beast, a podcast in two parts. I'm Matt Molinaro.
And I'm N. Burke. In the first episode, we review an original piece of media, and in the subsequent episode, we cover the reboot, and this is a reboot episode.
That's right, and today we're going to break the nose of every beautiful thing.
That's right.
Ouch.
This is Suspiria 2008. Wait, 2005 or 2018?
2018.
Okay, for some reason, my notes, I wrote 2005, and then I was like, that can't be right.
Yeah, that's... I wonder, there is a piece of trivia about this movie, jumping off the bat, that someone prior to the current director who made this one, had, gotten the rights to it to make a reboot before. And it was, in their early or mid-aughts. I don't remember exactly when, but it just never came to fruition. And and now we fast forward to 2018.
Now we have this one. So when I first started watching this, I had no idea that there were actual actors I would recognize in this. I figured it was just, I don't know, I just figured it was kind of like a TV movie type remake or sort of thing. I really had no idea what I was walking into. And so, probably half an hour into the movie, I'm like, this actress really reminds me of somebody. I wonder who she is. And then I was like, oh my God, that's Tilda Swinton.
Oh my God, that's so funny, because the only actress I remember when this came out, and I remember little sneak teasers for it on YouTube and different things. So, little artsy, they used to show little fast clips of the dance scenes.
Oh, okay.
Interspersed with some of the more chilling scenes with the Tom York kind of desolate music in the background. And I just remember these very stark images of Tilda Swinton.
Yeah.
So when I remember Suspiria, she's actually the only person I remembered from it. But I didn't think I was going to recognize other people in it, which I ended up doing.
Well, spoiler alert for a movie from 8 years ago. Dakota Johnson is the other, quote unquote lead of the film, who I also absolutely did not recognize.
I did not recognize. I knew she was in it because I watched the trailer, but I was waiting for her to come on screen at first. And when I first saw her, I was like, I don't know what's wrong with me, because I was watching her face on. It's not like she was obscured or in any kind of makeup. It's not that long ago either. I was like, is that her? I think that's her. I'm not 100% sure. I mean, the magic of bangs.
Well, and red hair.
And red hair. I mean, but bangs just really change your whole head.
Yeah.
Why? Why when I put my hair in front of my forehead, my whole head is a new head?
It's it's the master of disguise, bangs.
Do you remember when Alyssa Milano got those short bangs in Charmed?
Do I remember? I have nightmares about those bangs every day of my life.
Why was that happening to people?
I don't, Courtney Cox. I don't know. It was they made their stylist angry.
Something happened.
Something really dark was happening in Hollywood around that time.
But also, I read that Chloe Grace Moretz is another actress in this that I did not recognize at all.
And Mia Goth.
Mia Goth, yes. She's in it. Yeah. I recognized her, but I couldn't recognize her by name. I recognized her more by face and had to look her up.
Yeah.
But Chloe Grace Moretz was in it for 5 seconds, it feels like. Well, not really. She was on and off of it. And then, then you wouldn't be able to recognize her. But
was she Patricia?
She was Patricia, yeah.
Okay.
And did you recognize the cameo, which we could talk about later?
I did. The main actress from the first movie.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I didn't recognize her. I read about it on Wikipedia.
Yes, I read about it on Wikipedia ahead of time, and then I just waited for her the whole time. Okay. I don't know if you want to talk about this now since we're talking about casting, or if you want to talk about it afterwards. But did you realize as you were watching, or maybe even now, that Tilda Swinton played multiple characters?
I did know that, and it's kind of funny because the entire movie, so she plays the psychiatrist, Yosef, whatever, and the whole time I was like, this man has a kind of an unusually high-pitched voice. And then I think when I went to see the cast to try to, because... So you're going to laugh. Tilda Swinton kind of reminded me a bit of Frances Conroy from 6 Feet Under.
Oh, yeah, I could see that.
And so when I went to look at who the cast was, and then I saw Tilda Swinton, and it said Madame was she LeBlanc in this one, or am I just messing it up again?
No, you're just obsessed with Joey Tribbiani.
So it said Madame Blanc and then Yosef whatever. And I was like,
Helena Marcos, by the way.
Yes, and Helena Marcos, yeah. So in that final scene, she's playing 3 characters.
Right? I didn't know she was playing anyone but Madame Blanc the whole time at all.
Yeah.
Whatsoever. I discovered it the day after I finished the movie. I was like watching like things on the internet to see like, you know, like we talked about. You do the same, it sounds like. Things about the movie and whatever. And I watched this one guy talking about the movie, and he says something like, yeah, and it was really hard for me because like they did such a good job with the old age makeup and the, you know, all of the prosthetic and whatnot with Tilda Swinton transforming her into Dr. Klemperer. And I was like, what? 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 No. And then when I searched and I saw that she played the guy, I was shocked and I couldn't believe it. My mind exploded. And Davey watched it with me. He was also shocked, but he also picked up on the voice throughout the movie too. He kept saying it, like, there's something unusual about his voice, and he couldn't quite place what was going on. He was like, did they dub him in or something?
Yeah.
So, there you go.
I think it was all supposed to be like part of a big marketing ploy of like, because like up until a while after it released or something, I don't know the exact timing, they were like claiming that he was a real psychologist and he was like not an actor. And so I think it was meant to be kind of like almost like a Blair Witch type thing of like, oh no, this was a real person kind of thing.
Interesting. I did read that he was credited as Lutz Ebersdorf.
Yes.
At times. So I guess that's what that was.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, before we get into the summary, just wanted to shout out again Christian's hobby blog on Instagram for the recommendation for last week and this week's episode. And I know they are a big fan of both movies, so I hope you're enjoying these episodes.
Yeah.
And that goes for everyone out there. You've seen we've done a few recommendations the past few weeks. So if you have recommendations, we already have a plan for the next few, but we're always happy to take your suggestions. So, you know, communicate with us on Instagram, Blue Sky, email, all the things, because we love, love, love suggestions.
Yes.
Okay, that being said, I'm sure neither of us had seen this.
No.
And you ready for the summary?
I sure am.
Okay, it's a really, like, they didn't need to get so serious with this one, but here we go. A darkness swirls at the center of a world-renowned dance company, one that will engulf the artistic director, an ambitious young dancer, and a grieving psychotherapist. Some will succumb to the nightmare, others will finally wake up.
Wow.
Chill.
Yeah.
Not chills, but like chill.
Yeah, like chill down.
Like daddy chill. My favorite gif at work.
Oh my god.
So,
okay.
I mean, there you go. I mean, here we go. How did you feel when you saw the runtime?
Okay, Matt. Well, you know, because I texted you the minute I went to press play and I saw it was 2.5 hours. I sent Matt an all capitals text message, 2.5 hours, a million question marks and exclamation points, and then, how could you do this to me? Question mark.
The words question mark. I was outside with Davey taking our dog's potty when you texted me that. And I remember seeing it and I guffawed.
Well, I think we're going to have to go relatively high level on scenes so that this isn't a 2.5 hour episode of Rebooting the Beast.
Yes, but we're not going to miss any of the big points.
No.
My notes actually aren't as surprisingly long as I thought they'd be.
Oh, good. Okay.
Well, this was intense.
It was. So all of it is set amidst Berlin in the late 70s. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that works as a setting, and obviously that gives the psychiatrist character sort of some depth because he was separated from his wife during Nazi Germany.
Mm-hmm. I have thoughts about that whole plot line.
I personally, in order to make the movie not 2.5 hours long, The thing that I would drop is the entire storyline about Berlin.
Without a doubt. I couldn't have thought. I think you could reduce the movie by like a half hour.
At least by a half hour.
Yeah. And you honestly could keep the setting the same. It's a lot of unnecessary exposition work into the political climate. And I agree. Right. I understand that it totally works. And it also works with like, why is someone seeing the psychotherapist? Maybe it also explains like, why aren't people looking for girls going missing?
Yeah.
You know?
But you could do that with like quick little nods of dialogue.
Exactly.
Not, like, half-hour scenes.
Patricia's initial therapy session and a later nod to it from the witches at the academy could have been enough.
Agreed.
With like the sound of air horns outside. So, but anyway, This is set in 6 acts. Many of them are not. I think the easiest way is to go through the acts and the main plot points. What do you think?
I think that works. There was one point I must have like looked away just as they did one of the act titles, because I just remember at one point I went, Act 4, when did Act 3 happen?
Oh, okay, don't worry. I'll help us separate along the way. I'll tell you when we pause.
Okay, beautiful.
So Act 1, if I don't remember the name of Act 1, it's the only one I don't think I wrote down. I just wrote Act 1, Germany, 1977. So maybe that's what it's called.
Yeah, Act 1, I think it's just 1977 or something.
Okay, perfect. So this is, setting the scene, and we see kind of what we see at the beginning of the first movie, right? The therapy session?
There was no therapy session at the beginning of the first movie. The first movie just started with Susie in the airport. So they've given Patricia's Pat's character more background than they did in the first movie.
You're right. You're totally right.
But yeah, she's talking to her therapist, who I think is meant to be sort of an amalgamation of that Mandel character and also the occult guy with the eyebrows.
Yes.
Oh my God, those eyebrows.
Those eyebrows are still haunting me from the first film. Yeah, I agree. He's like, I think this is a way better choice, storyline wise.
Oh, versus the airport, you mean?
No, this character. Than those characters.
Yeah, I agree.
He makes a lot more sense to be the like ordinary guy out there trying to figure things out. And he's suspicious.
Agreed.
Which there's no one being really suspicious out there in the first movie.
Correct. Yeah, the main suspicious person is Susie, and in this movie we've sort of got an external, force being suspicious.
And he kind of also plays the part of, I feel like, the guy who's the blind piano player.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. I was waiting for that character to show up.
Exactly. I was waiting for a dog to rip this guy's throat out.
Yeah, exactly.
Spoiler alert, no. But yeah, Tilda Swinton is this guy, by the way. Hello, I'm shocked.
Honestly.
He's an old man in old age makeup. And
she's such a phenomenal actor. It's wild.
She really is. And I just love her voice just when she speaks.
Yeah, me too.
She takes me to another world. She makes me want to order Icelandic furniture off the internet. I don't know why. So, but yeah, this is where we find out the setting is like Germany in 1977, and Patricia is not a refugee. She's what's the word I'm looking for?
Renegade?
Renegade? Rioter? I don't know the right word for. I'm not good at this kind of stuff. She's emblazoned by the cause, and she wants to go out there and do the thing. She wants to make bombs.
Yes,
that's for sure.
She's a conscientious objector.
Yeah, and she's in the therapy session talking about all the stuff about. Is this when she's already talking about the witches?
Yeah, she kind of jumps right into it. Like, they talk about, like, they gave me the perfect balance, the perfect sleep. They took my hair. They took my urine. Yes. They took my eyes.
They're always watching. They took my eyes. They're watching me. And I knew it. I was right. They're all witches.
Yes.
And she wants to go back and save her friends, Sarah and Olga, because they know a little bit of what she knows. And they're, like, in danger.
Yes. And she has a line that's, they'll hollow me out and eat my cunt on a plate.
Oh, yes.
If they find out that she's, like, caught on to them.
If you don't think that was a runner-up for the opener.
For the opening line, yes.
I just thought it could be a little bit too aggressive for someone who might be listening at 8 in the morning.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah, that was intense. And she's scared, and she's clearly, affected. She's walking around the room. She's got her hair in her face. So one could stand to reason maybe something is off about her too. Who knows? If you don't know what the movie's about. And he's writing down what she's saying, but he's also, and saying out loud, like, taking in all the information, but he's also claiming it's delusion. But he seems to believe it at the same time.
Yeah.
And one of them says that the witches have been underground since the war, and now they've
Yeah.
like surfaced. Oh yeah, and this is she says about the taking her eyes and how and this is when she says that Mother Marcos wants to get inside of her.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yikes. So that's all that.
And then we cut to a religious homestead where my note says people are washing a woman who is a major mouth breather.
Oh my god, the mouth breathing. Her role through this whole movie is to just sit with her lips slightly parted and breathe really, really heavily.
I was going to say, like, you could have cast her as, like, dry-lipped woman.
100%. I was like, get her, what was her name who was the Peekaboo Breeze?
Who?
Do you remember Peekaboo Breeze?
No.
She was a professional skier in the 90s, and she was always doing those lip chap commercials. Chapstick commercials.
Oh my god, I have no memory of that.
Wow. I watched a lot of TV, people. But yeah, she's meant to be, I think, this is flashback or current time. I'm not exactly sure. I don't know exactly if it's both, but it's
I think flashback most of the time.
Yeah. And it's a very like, Amishy Mennonite. We'll find out it's an Amish community who separated from the Mennonites because of their progressiveness.
Yeah.
And, intense. The wheezing was very like a nod, I feel like, the first movie. The wheezing of Mother Marcos.
Yeah.
That they talk
agreed.
about.
Yeah.
And I think Suspiria is like mother of sighs or whatever. So that's kind of like a thing.
Yes.
I like that.
And then we cut to Dakota Johnson in a subway station. And did you notice that one of the signs said Suspiria?
Yes, I'm so glad you noticed that. I wrote that little note down. I was like, how cool is that? I love things like that.
And she kind of travels to the dance academy. And we meet Mrs. Tanner, who's she is not, what did I call her in the
Miss
first one?
Miss Trunchbull in the first one?
Miss Trunchbull, thank you. She's not Miss Trunchbull in this one. She's kind of it's kind of interesting. Like, I feel like the first one had a lot of, like, rigidity to the characters, and this one, they're all very, like, dancey. There's, like, they all feel like dance-oriented characters,
yes.
If that makes sense.
They all feel like dance-oriented characters, and they all kind of feel like maternal characters too. Like, I could see every one of these women at the head of their own like matriarchal kind of table.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They all have this kind of like leadership feel about them.
Did you notice that as they were walking Susie like upstairs toward some of the studios or whatever, there was like a board that had photos in it, and I swear to God, I think it had photos of the original cast.
I think it might have had some of the photos of the original cast. Not all of them, though.
Okay.
But I did see that board, too, because I noticed they had Blanc and Marcos near the top.
Yeah.
In, like, two different head spots.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of different than the first movie where she can't get in, but this time she's coming and they're saying, this is not the best time, but, we'll have to deal with it. Come along, and they kind of like rush her along and kind of treat her like an afterthought like they do in the first movie, but not as intense, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, and they want her to, audition this time, and Madame Blanc isn't there, and they make her audition without any music. There's a lot of breathing in this movie, like a lot of focus on breath,
a lot of quiet. In the first movie, it was a lot of the high, intense kind of like goblin music, the band. And this time, I know Tom York worked on the soundtrack, and it was a lot more like desolate and stark and haunting. And the lighting is all very like stark and gray and muted tones, whereas the first movie was like punchy, Technicolor red, blue, yellows all over the place. Very different vibe. But I feel like it has a similar kind of like effect. It's haunting and creepy all the time. The breathing is haunting. It makes you anticipate like something is going to happen. And also with dance things, I don't know about you, whenever I see dance things, especially when they put any kind of camera on the feet, I'm always like waiting for someone to break their ankle. And I'm like dying the whole time.
No, that's not something I think about.
Oh my God. Every time they were having her jump or focusing on someone jumping around, I'm like, oh my God, that person's going to have a horrible thing happen to their ankle. I don't want to look at it.
That's so funny. That literally never crossed my mind even once.
That's so funny. That gets me every time, but anyhow, so she has her rehearsal where they're like, you should barely be here, and there's no music, and it's intense.
And Tilda Swinton, like, we cut to her for the first time, who's like teaching a dance class. She's Madame Blanc, and she seems to like sense Susie dancing, and so like shows up in the audition room, and is kind of like taken by her in an interesting way.
Yes, it's a very like moment of connection, instant moment of connection.
Yes. And they decide to admit her, and Miss Tanner kind of talks to her about like, we'll send one of our girls to help you collect your, oh wait, no, I'm sorry. They mention they have a room, and Susie's like, oh, I heard because Patricia left. And so she seems to have like caught wind of like, maybe Patricia ran away. She like has a sense that something's maybe not quite right there. And then there's one actress who I don't know what her name is. She only has a few lines in the movie, but she sits down and delivers the weirdest delivery of a line in the entire movie, where she says like, we'll send one of the girls to help you with your luggage. Like, it is the weirdest line delivery. I can't figure out what she was going for there.
There's a lot of choices, Matt. I'm here for them.
Yeah.
For them. So they give her
Okay.
Patricia's room, since Patricia's run off, and, they're kind of aware of no one's aware of what's happened with Patricia, but they kind of all say that she is kind of run off because she's, been revolutionized, and she's doing her thing out there.
Yeah.
And she's wasting her potential. They don't seem very sympathetic about her loss.
No.
And
that's pretty much the end of Act 1, right?
yeah, Sarah just... Oh, she gets
Meets her at
roomed
the
with
hotel
Sarah,
room.
who is,
Yeah.
what's her name? Mia Goth, right?
Mia Goth, yeah.
And, Sarah's like, I heard you were amazing. And she's like, yeah. And then there's like a bomb outside, and we hear news about hijackers, and who cares? And then it's Act 2, Palaces of Tears.
Yes.
And this one is with the old man waking up to whatever.
Yeah, and going from one side of Berlin to the other.
Oh, right, yeah. And
but
then we find out there's a vote that went on recently back at the academy.
Yeah, they like are kind of doing the vote as they're sort of like focusing on the matrons of the school, and like it's essentially a vote between who's going to stay in charge at the school, and whether people are going to vote for Marcos or Madame Blanc, and the vote goes to Marcos. And so she will remain in charge.
Yes, but only by 3, so it was a small margin.
Yeah.
I like this scene. It was very like slow, but it was cool and moody, and I like weird things.
They talk about
cool. Huh?
They talk about having to like pick somebody new to try the ritual on, and they kind of like propose maybe Sarah.
Yeah, because Patricia was a failure, and it sounds like Blanc had doubted the choice the whole time, and everyone else was for it. So she's again like, well, let's be careful, let's be more patient. But it sounds like a lot of people are like, well, we have a rush, we don't have a lot of time.
Yeah.
And then we get more scenes of the man, the doctor, taking his train to East Berlin, and we see him at it's the Berlin Wall, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
And he sees a heart with A and J carved into it.
Yes.
And he's obviously the J, and he
finds Patricia's bag, which he kind of like sees some of her notes about what's going on in the school, and I think this is what sort of prompts him to think maybe there is something happening there.
Yeah. Exactly.
Then we get the dance class scene where Olga has kind of a breakdown because they've basically said like, oh, Patricia's just like gone to like do her, political protesting thing. Like she left of her own will, and Olga freaks out and is like, you're lying, and wants to leave the school.
Yeah, she's pissed, and she's trying to stand up for Olga. She's trying to stand up for Patricia because she's like, she was standing up for her beliefs, but she wasn't all about that. You know why she left, and you guys are just treating it like nothing, and no one else seems to care besides Olga. Sarah seems a little affected, but it's, she's on her own, and she looks like the crazy one. And then they kind of like argue a little bit longer, and she says witches, but she says it in German or French.
Maybe. I'm not sure.
She says it in another language, and then there's like, they laugh at her, and she storms out.
Yeah.
And now they need a new lead because they were like maybe going to choose Olga, it sounds like, since Patricia's not there anymore.
So Susie volunteers, and it seems like maybe Madame Blanc does some kind of magic on her. Like she presses her thumbs into her hands and her feet, and there's like a little glowing symbol kind of thing.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Very, very clearly, like, marking her feet and hands for something.
Yeah.
And she volunteers to do it because she's seen this documentary of this performance called Volk, which is what we're all, working up to, this performance of Volk, which was made by Madame Blanc. And it's one of those interpretive dance numbers, you know? One of those artsy sort of things, showcases.
And right before she actually starts dancing, Olga somehow kind of gets maybe mind controlled, maybe lost, maybe some combo, and instead of like leaving the school, ends up in the like downstairs audition room that's like all mirrors.
Yeah, because she encounters two women on the staircase as she's leaving.
Yeah.
And they kind of like laugh at her, and there's this eye contact thing that happens, and she becomes sick immediately afterwards, and she sort of stumbles her way to the room of mirrors, and then the door closes behind her, and she's in a glass room of a dance studio, but it's literally all mirrors, and there's no like doorknob or anything to get out.
Yeah.
This is the most intense scene in the movie, I feel like.
I would agree with that, because basically what happens is like Susie does the dance, and every time she does like a dance move, like something grotesque happens to Olga's body, like her bones sort of like break or like shift out of place, and she's all like contorted around and slamming into the walls and my note here was like, they must have hired a contortionist to play Olga, and of course when I read afterwards they did.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say that. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because it was pretty intense, and they do things like with her face that kind of remind me of the first movie, like they were trying to nod to the face smash against the glass scene.
Yeah, but
in a way more grotesque way. It was hard to watch. It went on for a while.
It did go on for a long time.
Yeah. I mean, I felt like it was intense, and I felt like it was kind of, I don't know how to, it was cool. I thought it was kind of cool. I don't know how to say, even though it was kind of violent.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was well executed.
Yeah. I was like,
and it seems
God.
like
Yeesh.
Olga is like basically barely clinging to life.
Yep, and she's just laying there, and then it feels like, oh my God, now she's still alive, so this is like even more intense. Mm-hmm. And of course in the dance class, it's just like, okay, no big deal. Like I think she passes out at the end, or she becomes a little sick at the end.
Yeah, she gets kind of worn out, and Blanc has Susie take her to her room and kind of like tend to her. Sorry, yeah, Sarah. God, I really wish they hadn't named them Susie and Sarah. Like, could you give me like a Jennifer or something?
Snakes.
Snakes.
Then we get we get a few like quick scenes. We get some background or flashbacks of Susie as a young child at the Amish Mennonite community, and she's always been drawn to Berlin. She's been like, everyone's like drawing the map of the United States, and she's like writing across to Berlin, and everyone notices it.
Yes.
Then we see her give a pee sample in current time. And then we find a bunch of scenes of the doctor going through Patricia's notebook and seeing all the things about witches, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we see like the kind of hierarchy, and it kind of seems like Madame Blanc is at the center of a lot of it, but Madame Marcos has written a lot. There's a lot of doubts about Madame Marcos written and her powers. Interesting.
And then we get the teachers finding Olga in the dance studio.
Mm-hmm, with like one of the it's 5 of the women from before who were voting, like the head.
Yeah,
people.
And they have these like gnarly fucking hooks.
Mm-hmm.
And the teacher says like, attention, don't hurt Olga. But then like one by one they walk up and like slam a hook into her body.
Yeah.
And like drag her out of the room by these big metal hooks.
Was that like a political thing, the hook? Is that like a...
I kind of wondered if that was like a nod in some way, but I don't know.
I don't know either. I'm not that.
But I thought that was almost as gross as the dance scene.
Oh yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that she's still, because you hear her as the hooks go into her, so she's feeling it, and they really want to. They're laying it out. I was like, okay, this is a true like horror movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then we have
Susie and Madame Blanc have dinner.
Oh yes, 1-on-1.
Yeah, and they have a very weird conversation, and Blanc asks her like, what does it feel like to dance? And Dakota Johnson replies like, it feels like what it must be like to fuck like an animal. And I was like, all right, Nine Inch Nails.
Yeah, I was like, okay, girl, wow, intense. And Madame Blanc is excited by this, and you can tell there's this like relationship forming that's sort of like idolatry, but also colleague feel. They're like talking like on an even level. There's also like there's a very motherly sort of thing throughout the whole film, I feel like.
There's kind of like an like I would just call their relationship as almost like an obsession in some way of like sensing some sort of kindred spirit, but also like maybe some unhealthy love for each other kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Their relationship is very hard to describe. I feel like it could fit in a lot of different categories, but it's definitely very intense, whatever it is.
Yeah. I like that. And then she says to her in this conversation, though, Blanc says to her, "Thank you for your help with Olga," which is like, ooh, she doesn't know what she means, but yuck.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So then we get, I think, scenes of Sarah being worried about Olga and Patricia because, where are they?
Exactly. And she has some weird dreams that night. Have we started Act 3 yet?
No, so it's right after this. So she has this dream sequence. This is Susie, right? Or Sarah?
Yeah, Susie.
Susie goes to bed and she has this dream sequence. We see flashes of, I wrote a few of them down, mirrors breaking, like this very dramatic woman in pearls, the Amish community, a lot of the letter A in like red, kind of like the scarlet letter, and you hear the word Hester said a few times, so I think it's directly related. And then a bloody handprint and like a witch figure all in black.
Yeah, it's very like kind of par for the course, like what you would expect horror movie quick cut witchy scenes to look like.
Yeah, exactly. It was creepy. I loved it.
Yeah.
Then we go to Act 3, which is Borrowing.
I don't know how I missed that title card.
You might have been in the dream sequence, having your own dream sequence. But that's when we have, pardon me, don't talk about Marco, I said Patricia. Someone saying they want to talk about...
this is when the police arrive.
Oh, yes. The police arrive and they want to talk about Patricia.
Yeah, and they ask to speak to Ms. Marcos, and they say she's not there. And then they ask for Madame Blanc, and the woman pretends to be Madame Blanc to talk to them. And I was like,
that's not going to go well. Then we have Sarah and Susie sneaking off because Sarah asked her, like, will you do something with me? Like, will you promise? You might get in trouble. And she's like, sure. So now they're sneaking off, and they go into like a records room and break in because Sarah wants to find Patricia's records or Olga's.
Yeah, to get like contact info for like parents or something.
Exactly, because she wants to know where they are. So she wants to know if they really have gone home or not. And she can't find their files at all. What does Susie take? She takes something here. I forget what it was.
You know, it looked like a letter opener to me, but I don't know that it ever comes back.
Yeah, because you know what? I wrote down that she snatches something, and now I'm thinking about it later on, and I don't know if it ever comes back either. But maybe as we're going through, we'll realize what it was.
Maybe, yeah.
I went back. It's hard. It's a dark scene. So she snatches something from the drawer, and then we see a scene of oh my gosh, this is kind of funny. The two witches who were being questioned before by the detectives have the detectives now in like a trance, and they're like torturing, and not necessarily torturing, but humiliating them. Like, are they both naked or like pantsless, and they're like joking about their wieners or whatever?
Yeah, and like poking it with the hook. Like they poke his penis with the hook, and I was almost like, I swear to God, if I'm about to see a hook go through a penis, I might be out.
I know. I looked at Davey and I go, oh my God, they're going to show it. They're going to show it. They're going to show this. They're going to cut a penis off and I'm going to see it. They didn't do it.
Thankfully, they don't.
Not on camera, at least. But there is a nod that something happened later on.
Yeah, well, and yes. And Susie seems to almost find it amusing.
Yeah,
in a
she's
way.
not
And
disturbed.
so this is when I was like, oh, I think she's like turning into a member of the coven, or like always wanted to be or something.
Yeah, because you kind of see how she idolizes Madame Blanc, and it feels like there's something more there.
Yeah.
With that connection and all of this. So we cut to a dance rehearsal, and Madame Blanc says no music.
It's a piece called Rebirth, and she's going to have Susie freestyle at the heart of it.
Freestyle. I wish it was like so ridiculous. I wish it was like freestyle, That,
like the Running Man and
yeah,
the
like a hip hop
lawnmower.
dance class from the 90s.
Yeah. Instead, she is like straight up freak dancing, orgasming on the floor.
Yeah, it's very animalistic, I feel like.
Yeah. And we see like a gross hand with gross nails sort of like reaching out as though it like kind of senses her freak dancing
Yeah, it
magic.
feels like it's reaching upwards towards like the floor from beneath.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And Blanc does not look pleased about it.
Yeah, because I think she senses. So we learn in sort of like the next couple little clips that gross hand was Marcos, and I think Blanc can sense that like Marcos wants to use Susie as like whatever this vessel is, and
I think I found out. I thought she was under the floor, but I think we find out she was in the closet.
yeah,
Just like in the closet, sitting there. And I think there's like a conversation where there's three like supreme witch mothers, and Marcos is claiming to be one of them, or the vessel of one of them, and there's doubt that she's one of them.
Yeah.
Mother Suspiria, or whatever it is.
Exactly.
Which, by the way, I heard that the other two movies that the original director made are about the other two mothers.
Yeah.
Interesting, so...
but they think like Marcos will live because they quote like found the girl in time. So they seem to think that Susie is like the right vessel to allow Marcos to live somehow.
Mm-hmm. Did we talk about how they said they would need a witness as well?
I missed that.
Okay, so now... Oh, okay, because now we have them... So I guess that's not quite yet. I think I skipped ahead a little bit. So we have that whole sort of sequence. Then we see Sarah and Susie talking about dancing, saying, did you feel anything when you danced? And I think she says she felt like Patricia.
Susie says something like she felt something, and Sarah says that sounds like something Patricia would say.
Oh, that's right. So
yeah,
she's becoming suspicious, Sarah, now. Or she's becoming aware of something different about Susie now. And then there's like a night out with all the women.
Yeah, so I was so confused by the scene at first, but then I was like, oh, I see what they're doing. Like they're talking telepathically about their plans for whatever ritual they're going to do, and like arrange to be seen by the other students because they want Susie to see them as like a part of like the larger world kind of thing.
Right.
And so it's, I don't know. I don't know that it was a necessary scene, to be honest, but...
This is when they say they need a witness, and they say the old man will do. He seems like he'll be appropriate because he's the one who called the missing persons thing on Patricia. So they're like, let's have him be the one to get kind of revenge on him.
That makes sense. Okay.
Then they send more dreams to Susie. She's sensing things. She sees things like we saw before. In addition, now she's seeing the hooks in her dreams. She's seeing things about like rebirth. And she sees this weird colored light, which kind of looks like, I don't want to say the word, but SIRI on my phone.
Oh, yeah. I know. I agree. That's true. Yeah. And she screams, I know who I am, over and over. And that like wakes up Sarah, who comes to check on her.
Yeah, and she says, oh, don't worry, it happens to us all, with another girl who they think it's just like trauma bonding over like this like crazy experience of this dance school and how intense it is.
Yeah.
And they say, well, we're sisters now. And
yeah.
It's
Nightmare twins.
Not exactly.
Act 4
is called
Taking.
Taking, yes. This is where we
by the way, this is the point in the movie when I finally realized that this was Dakota Johnson and Tilda Swinton. It took me until this part.
I cannot believe you. That's hilarious. I mean, Tilda Swinton is very differently styled in this movie. She's usually like got the very like ethereal, like kind of like light hair against pale skin, kind of wintry kind of look. And then she's got that sort of like severe dance teacher, tight bun, dark hair vibe.
Yeah, with like bleached out brows. It's very different.
Yes, it's very different than her usual. So, but let's see. This is where we get a lot of stuff about the time period. Patricia being a suspect of terror, and I see. This is when what's his name visits the school. The old man. He visits the school.
He goes. Yeah. He goes to the school and talks to Sarah and says he's been looking for Patricia, and they kind of like have a little lunch. And he basically says, like, I think something bad is going on at the school. I think the police missed something. Patricia spoke of hidden rooms. Like, will you keep your mind open to looking for odd things? Because I'm worried about Patricia.
And she's like, you know what? You're a little extra.
Yeah, she's not having it.
Yeah, she's like, I came to talk to you, but this was a mistake. And she's like, you're crazy. And she leaves. There's nothing going on at the school. I'm there every day. Thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah.
I think I skipped a little ahead. The only thing I remember happening before this is there's the rehearsal scene at the school, which could happen before or after this. It doesn't matter. Where we're trying to get Susie better on her jumps.
Oh, yeah.
And she's working with Carolyn, and Carolyn is like the girl who's like really good at doing the jumps.
Yeah.
And then after like Carolyn is teaching her, Carolyn has a seizure.
Yes. Also, there was the kind of semi-inconsequential scene of the psychiatrist going to the police to try to get them to look at the case further. And we also find out that this is where we find out that his wife had gone missing
right.
Many years ago, which kind of comes back up later. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is, he runs into the detectives. And then this is, I think, when the detective like touches his like pants and it's kind of insinuated that something's happened.
Yeah.
So who knows? Maybe something did happen.
Mm-hmm,
I don't really care. Then we have the one-on-one lesson, I believe, with what's her name? Susie and Madame Blanc, right?
Okay.
And we find out that Patricia wasn't willing to be a vessel, and that you have to empty yourself because the work lives in you. And if you want to commit and be the lead, which Patricia wasn't willing to like fully surrender to, you have to really be willing to empty yourself and allow the work to live within you. And she says, I can do it. I want to do it. And she says, like, well, what part do you want to be? Everybody has a part, and it's very intense, like eye contact sort of like conversation between the two. And she's like, well, you know, you could be the heart, you could be the whatever you want to be. And she says she wants to be the hands. I want to be the hands of this performance of this group.
Yeah.
And that excites Tilda, and then they continue their like jump session, which I was watching the whole time waiting for an ankle to break, and I'm glad it didn't.
And then one of the teachers who never has any lines stabs herself in the neck.
What did you think of? I have a theory about this because they kept showing her randomly. She kind of looks like Velma.
Kind of, yeah.
But with like huge glasses and Coke bottle glasses. She stabs herself in the neck while the witches are all talking about how Marcos will survive and, you know, not to worry about it. Do you think she was hoping to be used as a vessel?
I really don't know. That's another kind of, because it's probably like the fourth time they've done like a close up on her face or her head while other people are talking.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is something else that could have been cut from the movie.
Yeah, I didn't really get it, even towards the end. My theory is that's what happened, but everyone kind of runs around her. It's kind of intense, and Sarah wakes up. They cut to seeing Sarah wake up and wanting to investigate all the commotion she hears from that. And this is when we get the nod to the first movie, sort of, where we find out she's been counting steps, and so she's now following through on those footsteps, and she finds the hidden door with... where does she find the rooms? Oh, it's got like paintings and figures and all different things.
Like weird figurines, and she like takes one of the hooks and hears like people screaming and chanting, trying to, I think, save the life of the matron who stabbed herself in the neck.
Yeah.
And then she goes and meets with the psychiatrist and like tells him she thinks he's right and there was a hidden room and full of all these horrifying objects, and she shows him the hook.
Yeah. And he talks about the three mothers and the darkness, tears, and sighs, and he says it could be a shared delusion that was happening.
Yeah.
But doesn't he kind of like believe it?
I think he does.
He's just kind of like a man of science and is trying to rationalize it, maybe?
Yeah, like maybe if the magic isn't real, like, because he has a line in the police station where he's like, you know, I don't believe in magic, but I believe that people can do horrible things convincing themselves that it is magic.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so he says he'll keep the hook because it's not good for her to have, and she leaves.
Only to be seen by one of the teachers leaving the psychiatrist's office.
Yeah.
So I was like, Sarah, you're in danger, girl.
Big time. because she disguises herself afterwards, but it's clearly it's not a great disguise. It's basically like a shorter version. It could have been another witch.
Yeah, totally.
And she knows, like, okay, great. Wonderful. Now I'm going to be all paranoid. And then we see Dakota Johnson get a top model haircut and not freak out.
Yeah.
They cut her hair and they take it, which we heard earlier that they stole someone's hair, didn't we?
Mm-hmm. And there's also a scene where she's peeing and she pees into a cup and gives a urine sample.
Gross. So,
yeah.
Yeah, so we see all this happening, and Dakota's really changing in her posture throughout the movie. She's a little more confident. She seems a little bit more aware. She's got this look on her face like she's got a secret now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And Sarah, like, accuses Susie of making some kind of deal with the matrons of the school and is like, you don't know what they're going to ask you in return. And Susie is like, everything's fine. Don't worry about it.
She's like, you're dramatic. Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
You're a lot. That's a lot of emotion for safe. There's a quick cut to Susie's mom in bed, breathing heavily through her chapped lips. And she says that her daughter, her last daughter, was her sin on the earth. And that's Susie.
Yes.
Then we cut to the school again, and it's performance night, and they're all wearing their performance outfits, which is like red string,
red ropes
tied all around them, except for Susie, she's in red.
She's
too?
She's in the red rope outfit too, but they paint her face in a way that like distinguishes her from everyone else.
Yeah, there's like white lines across her face, and like everyone else is kind of like meant to not be seen, and she's got this like very sort of ceremonial makeup on.
Yeah,
and she's like, okay, and then no one knows where Sarah went. Sarah sneaks off. We see her sneak off. The doctor arrives to see the performance of Volk, and the witches seem like they're expecting him, and they lead him in, which they were. Obviously, we know that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then it says Act 5, in the Mutter House.
Which translates to all the floors are darkness. So Sarah explores while everyone is distracted, and she finds Patricia, and Patricia is like sort of like a zombie.
Yeah. She's like all veiny and, dead-eyed.
Rotting.
In a corner. And I think there's another body that has like missing limbs, and I think that's meant to be Olga.
Well, there's a body that starts like crawling toward them, like full The Girl from The Ring style, and I think that is Olga. Yeah.
Yikes. Which is scary and creepy, and she's like, what happened to you? And she's like a corpse, and then we see backstage, everyone is like, where's Sarah? We're for the performance, and the teachers are like, perform it as though Sarah's not there. Don't worry. She's here. Don't worry about it. And then we cut back to Sarah. And if I remember correctly, it was kind of hard to see and I didn't rewind, but she's kind of walking down a dark hallway of the school after seeing what she saw, disturbed. And I think either the floor is like disappearing underneath her, like the witches are doing that, or they're just doing it to her bones. But either way, her bones start to break.
Basically what I read on Wikipedia, because I was like kind of confused at this part, so I read up on it later, is it seems like two of the witches like sense where she is and like create holes in the floor, and she like sort of stumbles into one and breaks her leg, and like the bone is popping out.
Okay, it was hard to tell because it was very dark on my screen, but it looked like darkness beneath her feet. But then so she breaks her bone, and she screams, and she's on the ground, and then the two women come up behind her, and it seems like they just they heal her, but I think they sort of just disguise it. They just cover up the wound with skin. You could tell the bone is still broken underneath.
That's the vibe I got too. And they kind of like mind control her into joining the dance.
Yeah, she shows up into the dance while they're performing it, which is like the typical dance like we've been seeing throughout the movie. Very intense, very sharp, intentional, all that kind of stuff. Everyone's watching it enthralled. Sarah's clearly, her eyes have changed. Susie clearly notices her eyes have changed, which, affects her, but it's hard to say how. And then I see...
This went on for a long time, but then Sarah eventually like kind of falls out of her trance and falls to the ground and starts screaming.
That's right.
Because her leg is broken.
Right. And then Susie stops and runs over to her, right?
Yes, and like all the lights come on and the kind of performance ends without anything happening to anyone. So I think by Susie not finishing the dance, she saved inadvertently the psychiatrist's life.
Yeah. And Sarah's, I think.
Yeah.
Temporarily.
Yeah.
So the psychiatrist kind of walks over and sees this happen as well, and is like, what's going on? And then we cut to a scene of the man like kind of like leaving and going home and having like visions, I think.
Yeah, of his like missing wife and son, maybe.
Yeah. Then we see, is it Susie and Madame Blanc just like communicating telepathically?
Yeah. And she like apologizes for like going off book, and Blanc is like, it's,
she's like, did I hurt those people?
Yeah.
And she's like, no, it's just a dance. They just saw a dance.
Yeah.
And she's like, she says something like, something else is coming. And then I think Susie says, why do people assume the worst has already happened?
Yeah.
It's kind of creepy. And then she says, we see, I don't know if Madame Blanc says this to her or just thinks it to herself, but she says, there will be no dreams for you tonight. I'll make sure of it.
Yeah.
And then we cut to the final act. Suspiriorum. Okay. So we have, I don't know who says it, but they say tonight, it must happen tonight. It's probably the witches all talking amongst one another.
Yeah. And Susie joins them for another dinner out.
Oh, yes. And so do some of the other young dancers, who all seem to be like paired up with one of the like main women in the group.
Yeah, and they kind of seem to be a little bit in a trance kind of thing.
Yes, it seems like they're being doted on at first, and then that turns to sort of like a weird like power over situation with each group. Each pair, and then the witches who are in control are like giggling and laughing while the other ones seem sort of like out of it, like drugged, but probably just under some sort of hex or something.
Yeah.
There's also this weird thing on the wall at this restaurant that looks like an arm that's bobbling the whole time. Did you notice that?
I totally did not.
Okay. Look, anyone out there knows what that was? It was literally the whole time in the background, like hanging off the wall, like you'd see at like a Applebee's where you see like a random typewriter on the wall. Instead, here they have a wall, a prosthetic arm of some type, just bobbling the whole time.
Okay, that's weird.
Yes.
I have a question, because while this scene is happening, we cut quickly to the psychiatrist who like throws things over a bridge into the river. First like a bag of things, and then he throws the hook.
Yes.
Besides the hook, what was he throwing in the river?
I think he was dumping all of his records of his talkings with Patricia.
Oh.
And like all of that stuff. There were like relics and stuff. It looked like in there as well. I think it was insinuated he was dumping stuff from his wife too, and kind of like maybe quote unquote moving on, maybe.
Got it. Okay.
But then he turns and he sees something guides him to like a little house nearby, like a noise or something or a feeling, and then he sees his wife.
Yeah, who's the actress from the first movie?
Yeah, who played Susie, Jessica Harper.
I think that's right, yeah.
Jessica Harper. So I was like, oh my god. And I knew that her name was Anka in the movie, so I was just waiting for the person named Anka to arrive, and I was like, oh my god, I love this. She looks great.
Yeah, and they basically, they walk through the city together, and
she says
she tells him, yeah, she escaped from the Nazis and started a new life in England, and
she thought he was dead, and now they kiss and embrace, and it's very sweet, and
except, dun dun dun, she wasn't real, and he has been led to the dance school where like some of the teachers run out of the building screaming and like snatch him and pull him inside. So it was all a trap all along.
A trap. And he is being screamed at by them like, why? And they have the sickle that he threw in the water, and they're like, look what you made to it. You made it dirty, or just you made it disgusting. How could you? And they say that, basically they're laughing and they're going to get revenge on him for him calling the witches that go to him delusional and making them and gaslighting them, basically.
Yeah.
We also see Susie. I wrote Susie naked with light. What is this?
So basically, Susie gets back from dinner and is sort of psychically led to a chamber where like all of the matrons and like all of the other dancers are like nude and dancing. And this is when we finally see Marcos on screen, and she looks like Mojo from the X-Men.
Oh my god. I thought she looked like like a Jabba the Hutt sort of character.
Yeah.
You know, like
Have you ever seen, do you know who Mojo from the X-Men is?
I don't think so. Mojo.
Oh my god, she looks exactly like Mojo from the X-Men. You have to look him up.
I'm gonna come up right now. How
Okay.
I love the X-Men. How do I not know Mojo?
He's the kind of like interdimensional entertainment guy who like pulls them into TV. He was in the X-Men 97 actually.
Yeah, she does. She does. Exactly like this. Exactly like this, but with the legs.
Yeah.
Who was
and so we
also
get
played
kind of
by
like-
Tilda Swinton, by the way.
Yes.
Who was also
and
in the
Sarah-
room playing Blanc.
Yes, and also in the room playing the psychiatrist. So she's 3 people in this room at the same time.
Yes, and the psychiatrist is, I think, already naked on his side, like saying, "I'm sorry," and "Why are you doing this?" on the ground.
Yes.
So
Meanwhile,
he's the witness. I thought he was just witnessing the last dance, but he's the witness for this.
Yes.
Um,
And Susie says, "I'm ready."
Yep, I came here for
And
this.
yeah, Marco says there will be nothing left of you inside, only space for me. Blanc seems to sense like something's wrong. She's like afraid for Susie.
Yeah, she's like, "Don't you
and-
feel it? This is not right. Like, don't you feel something's wrong?" And she keeps urging Susie, like, "You can turn back. You could still turn back."
Yes. And then Marcos like waves a hand and like cuts the back of Blanc's neck, like looking like she kills her, although we kind of see her alive later.
Yeah, but like blood like sprays out of the back of her neck. It's very intense, and she's like,
Yes.
"There's that." And she says something like, "Accept me," and
You must put down the mother who bore you.
Yeah, cut down your false mother. And we see like a mind sort of moment where she like denounces her actual mother. You could kind of feel it.
Yeah.
Like they cut back to her.
Yeah, you see like
mother and...
the house in Ohio like get saturated in red light, and so she kind of like rejects her, and you hear Marco screaming death to any other mother. Mm-hmm. And then this part like was kind of confusing until I read Wikipedia later, but it seems like Susie summons death. And like there's like this figure that kind of like crawls out from the basement that looks even more horrifying than Marcos. And Susie asks like Marcos, like, "For whom were you anointed?" And she says, "Mother Superiorum." And Susie says, "I am she." And then this like death figure kisses Marcos and it kills her.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get kind of like a long, I will say, like, I'm really happy that we got the like color saturation at the end. I feel like that was a good nod to the original movie.
Yes.
But I kind of did not enjoy how this was filmed. It felt like, so basically Death goes around and murders everybody who voted for Marcos the first time in the movie. And it's kind of like her walking around and heads exploding while people are dancing, and there's lots of screaming, and the camera's very shaky, and I don't know. It looked kind of cheesy to me.
I agree. I think the camera work was unnecessary. It felt like off from the rest of the movie. I think they were trying to go for like a dreamlike state, and everyone's in a trance doing these like sort of rhythmic dance, ceremonial, like satanic looking dance moves, and it felt a little bit like, I mean, I'm glad it wasn't so intense, because literally people's heads are being exploded and their bodies are bursting into blood everywhere, and that part was like very intense. But yeah, the camera work was a little cornball. I agree.
Yeah,
and it went on for kind of a while. Yeah, it seems like she summons this death character who does this to everybody and gets her revenge.
Yeah, and she rips open her own chest and says, "I am the mother." And she, like, the Sarah and Patricia and I think Olga are kind of like standing at the center of the room, and she asks them what they wish for, and they all ask for death, and she grants it to them.
Yes. Yeah, she's like giving them mercy.
Yeah. She's
like, what do you guys ask for? And then she goes to the man and says like she's sparing him, I guess. And I don't know if she apologizes to him yet, but he's like let free.
Yeah. And one of the teachers walks him out and is like, "Good night."
Yeah. We see him kind of like being led out, looking sort of traumatized by this. And that's it.
Yeah.
And then we get the epilogue, which is a sliced up pear. I would love a sliced up pear. It looks like all the survivors are sick and recovering.
Yeah, like experiencing some of the nightmares, maybe.
Yeah. The man is stumbling home. And now it looks like next day, the survivors, I mean, like the teachers, the students seem to not remember a thing. They arrive at class like usual. Well, I guess none of them were there.
No, there's still students there, and they like are informed that Madame Blanc has left the company.
Yeah, but they weren't there at the ritual, I mean, so I guess they wouldn't know.
Oh, yeah,
anything.
yeah.
But
it's
just class as usual. And yeah, the teachers who are there are acting like, yeah, like you said, Madame Blanc is gone. There's this scene here, which I want to point out because I want to go back to it because I read a theory, where Miss Tanner is still there.
Yes.
And they're talking about how Madame Blanc is gone and she's left the company. And it's sad news for everybody. And then they cut to a scene of that room where everything happened, right? And some of the witches are like cleaning up the blood. And we see Madame Blanc's body, just like how it was standing. And someone like kind of pushes her head back into place. And her eyes move.
Correct. Yes.
And so someone like reacts like, oh my God. And then that's the last we see of that. So we don't know what happens with that storyline. But as that's happening.
Right. Like, is she alive or not?
Yeah. But, I mean, I think she's alive. Well, actually, I have a theory. Because after that scene, we hear, like, the little over-talk. We're still hearing the over-talking about how Madame Blanc has left the company and how things have changed as they're showing that. And then they cut back to a scene of the dance class hearing the news. And we see Miss Tanner, and her face is, like, very sad. She's got, like, she's looking outward at the group, hearing the news of Madame Blanc, and she's got, like, a tear that falls from her eye.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Tanner voted for Marcos and survived.
No, I think Tanner voted for Blanc.
Are you sure?
I think so, yeah.
I read that she voted for Marcos. Let me see something. Because I have a theory that I read a theory that I think stands, if that's true. But anyway, bookmark that for that moment. Oh no, she voted for Marcos.
Oh, you know what? I'm reading about it. You're right. She did vote for Marcos.
Yes. So I have a theory about why she was spared and what's happening there. But
okay.
We cut to the man who saw this all happen in a hospital now. The doctor.
Yeah. He's like bedridden now.
Yeah, and the nurse is, or it's not in a hospital, it's in his house, I guess. And the woman who's taking care of him is like the person who's been with him throughout the whole movie, like his assistant or whatever. Maybe it's his wife? I don't know. No, not it's the current. He's not remarried.
No, it's like his secretary / assistant.
Yeah, and then Susie shows up. And she's like, who are you? Where did you come from? And she just says to the woman, wait outside, which we know.
Yeah.
She just does. And then she sits next to him, and he doesn't talk back, and she looks sympathetic towards him and says, like, I want you to know the truth, not what witches told you, what those witches told you. And she tells him that his wife was actually killed 20 days after escaping in 1943. And he's got tears in his eyes or whatnot. But she says that, and he finds out the details of the death, and they're not kind. And she does say that she had 2 friends with her at the end that made her feel like she wasn't alone. And her final thoughts were of a birthday that she spent with him. And, like, I think holding his hand or something like that. And, don't worry. Like, that's what she was thinking about in the end. And it was emotional. And she says to him, okay, now all the women of your undoing will be gone, including Susie. She doesn't name herself, obviously, because she's not Susie anymore. And she says, like, that's not your guilt and shame to have. And then she, like, touches his head, I think, or kisses him or something. And then he has this, like, seizure-like response. But afterwards, he seems lighter, even though he remembers nothing, it seems like.
Yeah, it seems like she erased all his memory.
Yeah. And then the final scene, I think, is a close-up of the A and J on the heart of the now crumbled wall of Berlin.
Yeah.
Okay, my theory that I read.
Okay.
I saved who said it too, so I can quote them. This is from Rainbird X on Reddit 1 year ago. It says, if you're still on Reddit and you still care about my theory, it's that Susie swapped Blanc's destroyed body with Miss Tanner's. All the people who chose Marcos died except her. That is also why she's watching when the teacher tells the girls that Blanc is gone forever, and it is why they left Blanc's old body with Tanner in it. So they left why they left Blanc's old body with Tanner in it where she was whilst they cleaned up. If you rewatch it, it'll make sense.
Interesting. Do you want to know my theory about this movie?
I do.
I think that the real lesson from this movie is that the true horror of the world is contemporary dance.
Ooh. Well, there's 2 things that dance could never be again, and that's beautiful and cheerful.
Exactly.
I certainly wouldn't call the dance in this beautiful or cheerful.
Agreed. Yeah. I have a couple pieces of trivia, which is Dakota Johnson did 2 years of ballet training to prepare for the film.
Okay.
The director of the original Suspiria hated the remake.
I read that.
Yeah.
Which I thought was annoying when I read his reasons.
Yeah.
Like, a remake is a remake.
And then Tilda Swinton, in her, even outside of the nude scene where she was the psychiatrist, she requested to have a prosthetic penis while playing him to like help her get into character, which I thought was kind of hilarious.
Oh my god, yes. I love that.
Okay, ratings?
Do you want to do the ratings?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. IMDb, 6.7.
Okay.
Rotten Tomatoes, the tomato meter is 66%, and the audience popcorn meter is 72%.
Interesting.
I
Okay.
agree.
So overall, much lower than the original.
Yeah.
So for the original, I gave a 6 and you gave an 8.
Okay.
What do you think you want to give to this one?
I'm gonna...
Also, Matt, we never said whether last one was a beauty or a beast.
We didn't?
No.
What's wrong with us?
I don't know.
Oh, I think the last one was a beauty.
Okay, all right. I'll also give it a beauty, even though I gave it a 6. I do think it was like pretty and interesting and kind of hypnotic.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. So what are our scores for this one then?
I'm gonna give this one an 8.5.
So you're rating it higher than the original.
Yeah, I like this one better.
Okay. I think I'm also going to rate it higher. I'm going to give it a 7, which, listen, I honestly think if you took out a solid half hour to 45 minutes of this movie through like some of the editing of the like backstory of what's happening in Berlin, which I understand is like setting for the movie, but I think you could do it more quickly and concisely.
Yeah.
I think if you took some of that out, and I think if you maybe like shortened some of the like longer scenes of like dancing and stuff like that, I think it would be a faster paced movie. And then if you slightly changed the filming of the mass murder scene at the end, I think it would actually be a pretty good movie. Like it was weirdly alluring and stark and so opposite of the original that it feels like it does feel like somebody else's artistic vision of this previous film, you know?
I
like
agree.
It's not just like a shot for shot remake. It's kind of a different interpretation. And I like that.
Me too. I liked it a lot. I would say I would agree if you cut the runtime down by getting rid of the wartime storyline stuff. We don't need the random mousy witch stabbing herself in the neck.
Right.
There are a lot of things that could be shortened and more concise to make this even a 2-hour movie.
Yeah.
I could even deal with like an hour and 55 minutes, and I think this would have been much better. I think, also, I think the last scene, other than the camera work changing a little bit, I think we don't really need the whole like everyone is naked all the time thing. Like,
yeah, I would agree.
I didn't really add anything to it for me. If anything, I kind of like rolled my eyes a little bit at it.
Yeah, it's just a little like Game of Thrones gratuitous nudity for no reason kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's not even feels like it's like the most gratuitous because they're like, you're not really seeing much the way they film it.
Yeah.
But it just felt like why? Like, why are they randomly like, oh,
Yeah.
Anyway. So
is this a beauty or a beast for you?
I would say it's a beauty, and I think I liked it better than the last one, actually. I loved the first one, but I liked it better.
Yeah, I'm also going to call it a beauty because I there were a lot of things about it that I really liked.
And you're not a big horror movie person, so I'm surprised.
I know, right? See, okay, I say I'm not a horror movie person, but if there's
Psychological...
if there's psychological aspects to it, like I think that's one of the reasons I didn't connect with the final scene as much was a lot of this movie was about the like psychological intrigue to an extent.
Yes.
And then suddenly it became like kind of your typical slasher type film. And it felt like discordant from the rest of the film. But I also, my main complaint with horror is I really don't like jump scares. I do not like being afraid that something's going to jump out from around the corner during a movie.
Yeah. This was way more about the tension and the negative space and all that. And I read that this was going to be like, supposed to be a big deal, and it was a big flop in the box office. And so this was meant to possibly have sequels, and that those were canned, essentially.
Yeah.
Bummer, because I really enjoyed it, and I'm so bummed that it was a flop. I hope it is a cult classic, because I think it deserves credit. And I did say, I was shitting on Dakota Johnson in the last episode, saying I'd never seen her in something I've liked. And now I can say I did.
Yeah?
Thought she was very good. I thought she was great.
Well, listeners, we are taking a sharp left turn next week from Suspiria and horror film, and we are going to be covering the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
That's right.
And its reboot. So it's going to be full cheese factor next week, and I kind of can't wait for it.
Yeah, there's a lot of Power Rangers stuff out there. I think we're going to stick to the original series, the original TV series that we all grew up with, original, and then we'll do the, was it 2000 something reboot movie?
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
I'm excited.
It'll be something.
It'll be something. And in the meantime, if you want to support us, the best way you could do that is to go ahead and rate us and review us on whatever platform that you're using currently to listen to our episode.
That's right. And also, word of mouth is huge. That's the number one reason somebody tries a new podcast, is when somebody tells them to. So go tell a friend, go tell a neighbor, go tell anyone who will listen that they should check out our podcast.
Yeah, you can share our social media with them. And while you're there, you can tell us about what reboots we should do next. We can be found on Instagram at RebootyPod, on Blue Sky.
Nope.
And you can email us at rebootypod@gmail.com. So let us know what you think about the show so far and some suggestions for the future.
Also, we have a Patreon, which is patreon.com/NandMatt. You get cool bonus episodes where we review movies mostly, but we also have a fun back catalog of games and other things, so you should check that out.
And thank you so much for listening to Rebooty and the Beast.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.